Welcome back to a special best of edition of Beyond Coaching. In this episode, we're pulling together some of our favorite moments from our August conversations. You'll hear from Jason Schmidt on his early coaching years in Generation Z, and then from me and Destin discussing the Messiah method. Up first, we start with Jason reflecting on his first years of coaching. He got a head job at a very young age and thought he had leadership figured out until the role forced him to rethink what it really meant to serve athletes.
Thinking about those early years, I'm sure you're like me as a coach where you thought you knew it all early on. When you look back on the 23-year-old assistant coach, Jason, what did you not know that you didn't know about leadership and coaching?
Everything. Everything. I mean, I look back and you think you know servant leadership. Like you really think you know it. And you see it modeled in front of you. And as an athlete, you have a chance to lead your teammates and that kind of thing. But it just really goes to another level when you become the coach. And now that's an interesting dynamic because I was just a teammate of these people and now I'm their coach. But it really, like, you really have to be intentional about pursuing people and meeting them where they're at and finding a way to serve them in a way that works for them. To be fair, like early on, I was so caught up in the fact that I was a coach that it's like, hey, I'm a coach now. Like, look at me. I'm a big deal. Well, no, you're not. You're not,
Totally understand. Yeah, same way.
So I think that was where a certain maturation had to happen, was like, this isn't about you. This was never about you. And it's about the experience that you can provide. And the late nights when somebody needs something and they text you or they call you, or the players that are searching for their faith and you can share a story from your past. Those were like such a hook type of moment. Those are the things that I could never escape. Coaching, I love coaching. It's great. Love being on the practice field. But, you do that 500 days in a row. Yeah, you know what? I miss the days, like the late nights with my players on the road talking about life.
Yeah.
That's, to me, that's irreplaceable. That's always going to be the thing in the back of my head that's like, you need to get back into coaching. You need to get back into coaching, because that's always going to be a piece that I crave as a leader.
In this next segment, Jason unpacks one of the toughest tensions in coaching, balancing care for players with the drive to win. He explains the 80-20 roster mix and why competitiveness and culture have to coexist.
The right people on the bus, to be John Gordon for a second, like, I think you can be intentional about who you're recruiting and who fits your personality. I felt like by the end of my coaching tenure, as this often happens, I got really good at identifying who works for me, the type of kid that wanted to be led, that wanted to be a part of a holistic experience where it's not just about providing a great, intentional, faith-based education, mentorship, you name it. But they're also competitors where they're like, we're playing like pickup basketball after practice and they want to punch you in the face. It's like, no, you will not beat me. And now again, as is the nature of college athletics, like you go line up against somebody else and sometimes they get the better of you. And it's not a guarantee that you find the kids that fit in the middle. If you have all one type of kid that it's like just like a giant love fest, you're going to get railroaded,
The baseball term for this is every team needs a whiskey drinker. Is that true?
It might be. That's a new phrase for me, but that is the case, right? And then, and then obviously you've got the kids who you bring them into your program and they might be highly competitive and they might not even be the right fit for your culture. But in some ways, I'd almost rather have that. I've seen radical transformations of people over time just from exposure to the bigger group. You can't have all that kind of kid.
Yeah.
But if you have 80% good apples and then a couple of bad apples, like I get this from my head coach, but like those types of spiritual wins are just massive. I can think of a couple of guys who years later, we're talking 5 years after they graduate, send a text. Oh, I finally get the spiritual piece now. Like, talk about a yield.
That's interesting because, I think the 80-20 rule is a fair one on that. 80% don't want the experience you have to offer at that university, and then 20% that may not be a fit. Hopefully they can really play.
They always could.
Yeah, they must change relationships with that 20%.
In this last clip from Jason, he shares insights on working with Generation Z. He talks about their skepticism, short attention spans, and how simple systems of care like reminders and open door access help athletes feel valued.
I think they're the same in that they carry a certain youthful skepticism. They're going to test everything. And so any leader, any parent, any coach has to come with not just, this is why, like, we're just doing it this way. It has to be, this is why we're doing it a certain way. And not just, oh, I'm your coach, I love you, but this is why I love you.
Yeah.
And because they're going to test everything and they're going to push the boundaries a little bit, and they're going to see what they can get away with. And sometimes that can be perceived like, why are you always doing this? But it's actually a form of love. Like they want to see the depths that you will go to love them. And if you'll take that deep walk with them, even into the places that maybe aren't like well trodden.
Yeah.
So that's where I think it's like this universal thing amongst that generation. The way that they're different is their attention span, and
you totally take advantage of in your line of work.
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. I'm certainly part of the problem, but the reality is technology and the way things are shifting is not changing. I was on a scooter yesterday coming over to campus and was going through this nice little neighborhood here. And I saw one street that just had, it was like a brick lined street. And I was looking at that and I was like, wow, that looks like that's been here for 100 years or more. And then I thought to myself, I was like, I wonder how long it took them to lay those bricks. And then my next thought was, it probably doesn't matter. They probably didn't have anything better to do, and the pace at which our society went 100, 150 years ago, just slower than it is now. Nowadays, a football coach on the other side of the country could do something wild or crazy or controversial, and I've got it on my phone in my hands 10 seconds later. That type of interconnectivity, the demands that it creates, is just passed down to this generation. And so now they're looking for the next thing, the next piece of entertainment, the next thing to satisfy their craving for more. And I think that's where, again, my opinion, intentional leadership and showing somebody that you actually care, it doesn't quench that completely, but it replaces something that's really temporal and like worldly. Who cares about an Instagram reel or a TikTok? But when you have somebody that beyond a shadow of a doubt, they care for you, it's a game changer. And you almost have to shift your mindset, whether you're a young person or my age or you're 80, to, I want to pursue intentional relationships because this person is pursuing me really well. They're asking me the right questions. They make me feel seen and valued, just like my head coach did to me. I was once 20 years old, 18 years old, and I had a coach who had nothing to gain from loving me the way that he did amongst 30 other guys. But you know what? It was a great ROI for him because he got a great friendship out of it.
We now shift to Dustin and I's conversation on the Messiah method. In this segment, we dive into the idea that a coach's primary role is to create an environment where athletes can grow and thrive. We unpacked what that really means, how environment becomes culture, why it can't be left to chance, and how intentionality shapes the daily experience for a team. Primary purpose of the soccer teams there and the coaches was to create an environment. And there, specifically at Messiah, they were trying to create an environment where athletes grow, thrive, and represent their God well, gratefully. So let's focus on the create an environment, Dustin. Do you agree, disagree in terms of the primary role of the coach?
Yeah, I think when that book was written, environment was a word that might be now used as culture.
Yeah.
Created a culture. There are so many definitions of culture. The one I like the most is how we do what we do. And so you're creating an environment or creating a culture. Maybe the culture is the establishment of that environment where how we do what we do is, and then fill in the blank. How we do what we do is incredibly respectful. How we do what we do is detailed. We work hard at the word I use is transferable skills. So yeah, I think every team, every good team creates an environment or creates a culture or you're going to have a culture whether you want to create it or not. You have an environment on your team in your workplace whether you're intentional about creating it or not. If you don't, one will take form or take shape. So the fun part is, how do you do that? And what are those things built on? What is a great culture environment built on? I think we talk about the 3 C's in our book about that. We talk about transferable skills. I think right now, time and place, great environments, great cultures, book you've read, Rob, and I've read some of it, but they do hard things together and how they respond and react to adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Those are so important for creating a real environment or culture that people want to thrive in. I also think creativity, a chance to fail and ask questions in environments. I think you maximize that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think one thing they talk about later on in the book that I agree with is everything's intentional. So you don't leave it up to chance. And using our 3 C's, I think systems of care is just paramount to building, I agree, of environment and then culture, where this is how we do things. And as simple as we've talked in past podcast episode, I'm sure, even how you walk into practice or a game, being intentional on that, from what you talk about to how coaches walk to the locker room and who they're walking with. All those things shouldn't be left up to chance. In this final segment of this episode, we talk about what makes a program meaningful beyond some wins and losses, from intentional daily habits like handshakes and greetings to addressing deeper questions of what it means if you take away the scoreboard and the value of a program.
Coach has to set that model, but players believe players and customers believe customers. And so when that is, hey, here's how we do it. And I think sometimes, if I may, when I was a younger coach, it's like, this is how we do it because I said it and I'm the head coach.
Yeah.
And later, hopefully now it's like, hey, this is how we do it because it's fun.
Yeah.
And it's and guys love each other and guys are challenged. And this is something you want to be a part of. Which I want to go back to one thing you said, like as intentional as how we start practice. 3 years ago, when our guys came back from Christmas break in the spring, we locked the door. I had everything laid out for guys to come in. When guys came in, I shook their hand and put my hand on their shoulder and looked them right in the eye. And every guy, and I just said, hey, that may seem goofy, but that's how I'm going to greet you every day at practice. And that's how I want you to greet everyone else. I hadn't read the book yet. Mm-hmm. If you come to a practice for us, when a guy puts his bag down, gets there, he will go to each guy, hand and one on the shoulder, and say, hey, let's get after it today, or hey, glad to see you, or whatever that is. And as goofy as that sounds, because I wouldn't have believed that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, really, how we start? I look at it now, it's part of our environment. It's a core thing. Mm-hmm. Like, we're going to greet each other. We're going to acknowledge each other. We're going to look each other in the eye. We're going to say, good to see you, man. And away we go. And it's almost, it's almost like I can't start practice without that with each guy. Mm-hmm. So the intentional piece of that, huge. And now the fun part is, how do you do that within your program?
Yeah. So 2 follow-up questions. And I think this gets at the core of what we're talking about. One, if we remove the scoreboard from everything, what would still make your program worth being part of? I think that's what it gets down to, the core environment. If we took that piece away, what makes it?
Well, you just said it a minute ago in the study. It's relationships.
Yep.
That I would want to compete and do all these hard things physically and then also mentally, emotionally, because not everybody gets to play the same amount. Like, what makes it worth it to be part of that? And I think long term, it is relationships. Go deep here, a chance to celebrate the gifts that I have. I've talked about this. I'm getting better at it. When we perform, when we compete, could that actually be a form of worship that we say you've been given gifts and talents when you go do that? But at the baseline level, a chance to compete and to play. There's something important about being able to just play.
Yeah.
But relationships
And
100% trump it.
And take away the scoreboard and do that. You cannot accomplish that environment without a bunch of intentionality. Thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond Coaching. Beyond Coaching is a podcast developed and produced by the Impactful Coaching Project with the support of Friends University. The Impactful Coaching Project seeks to develop coaches that coach the whole person and is the thought leader in coaching the 21st century athlete. The Impactful Coaching Project produces training, information, and research to help coaches improve. To see more information, go to impactfulcoachingproject.substack.com. Thank you.